Great.
See that? All right. Let's call the Center County Board of Commissioners meeting to order at 10 o'clock. Those who are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Is there any public comment for items not appearing on today's agenda? All right. Seeing no comment, we'll move on to additions to the agenda. Any additions, Commissioner Concepcion, Commissioner Dershowitz? All right. There are no minutes to approve at this particular meeting. We do have a proclamation number 31 of 2023, proclaiming August of 23 as Gastroparesis Awareness Month in Center County. Center County was actually the first county government in the United States to offer a proclamation for this particular disease. Basically involves your stomach not properly digesting food. Very painful, very agonizing, and unfortunately in a lot of cases eventually fatal. We had Lady Mickey Hartranft, who was supposed to come in today and accept the proclamation, but unfortunately about a half hour ago she notified us that she was just not feeling well enough to come into the Willow Bank today. So we will still offer the proclamation. I'll read a portion of it here if the other commissioners will indulge me. Whereas gastroparesis, stomach paralysis, is a debilitating disorder characterized by severe pain, nausea, and vomiting, which affects an estimated 5 million Americans and can lead to malnourishment, dehydration, extreme weight loss, esophageal damage, and other such complications. Whereas gastroparesis is a chronic illness which, according to the National Institute of Health, affects about 5 million people in the United States, yet it is little known or understood. It is paralysis of the stomach characterized by the pain, nausea, vomiting, and sometimes you feel full early. And in addition to some of the other issues we mentioned, it also you can have dangerously erratic blood sugar levels. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of awareness. I mean, I hadn't really heard of it until my friend Mickey came down with it. And 5 million people just in the U.S. is a substantial number. There's no known cure, and there are few safe, reliable, or effective medications for treatment. So we seek further research, improved medications, additional treatment options, better support, and hope for the future. So our county commissioners here in Center County seek to educate the citizens of our Commonwealth, the medical community, and the general public regarding the devastating effects of this disorder and promoting awareness of the condition for the good of public health. Therefore, be it resolved that the Center County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim August as Gastroparesis Awareness Month in Center County. Any comments, Commissioner Concepcion?
Actually, we had a student in State College Area High School a couple years ago had this disease and shared her story with the student community at a student assembly focused on various disabilities. And it was, really enlightening to hear how it affected her education in terms of absences and having to miss class time. So hopefully some research continues on this disease in terms of finding cures and ways to ameliorate it.
Great, Commissioner Dershowitz.
Yep, just happy to raise awareness about this issue.
Great. All right. Any questions from the press on this one? No? All right. Well, I believe we can take a motion then.
I will move to adopt Proclamation 31 of 2023, proclaiming August 2023 as Gastroparesis Awareness Month in Center County.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Proclamation number 31, proclaiming August as Gastroparesis Awareness Month in Center County. All those in favor do so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And Aaron, can we get this over to Mickey or the local awareness group? All right, great. Thank you. All right, we will now move on to a resolution regarding a partnership between the county and PA Treasury. And I believe Kristen and Steve will talk about that.
I'm going to let Steve first talk a little bit about PA 529 plans and what they are.
Wonderful. Good morning. And so I don't want to be too repetitive of any, the language that's already in the resolution and that's going to be shared this morning in other presentations. And so if you'll indulge me, I just want to take a minute or two to give some context to this with some Pennsylvania history. And this is something that's important to us at the Treasury. So when the founder of Pennsylvania, William Penn, set out to develop this colony, he proclaimed that it was going to be a holy experiment. And it was a holy experiment because no one had ever seen a frame of government like this before. It was a frame of government that was dedicated to peace and to religious freedom and civil liberties. And he firmly believed that this could be a peaceful and a prosperous nation. But what's lesser known is that William Penn believed that in order to be successful in achieving and maintaining all of those things, we would have to be successful in the education of our youth. And at the time, education was largely considered a function of the home or the church. And so if you were a family with means, you could provide better educational opportunities than a family without. And if you belonged to certain religious institutions, William Penn was a Quaker, so they were very committed to educating their youth, then you fared better. And so he knew, though, that this was going to be something different because he was welcoming diversity into Pennsylvania. And he was literally inviting everybody from every tongue and tribe and nation, religious affiliation to be part of this holy experiment of his. And he knew that with that level of diversity, that the only way to really achieve education across the board would be if the state insisted upon it. And so when he wrote in 1682 the fundamental laws of the province of Pennsylvania, he wrote that all people having children shall require them to learn to read and write, and then at the age of 12 years old, they should learn a valuable skill or trade. And that valuable skill or trade in today's vernacular would be a post-secondary education. And we fast forward to today, and it's hard to imagine a world where you don't have state-sponsored education, but we know that attaining that post-secondary education is not without its obstacles. In fact, there's data and research here in Pennsylvania that show those obstacles are often a little greater in rural communities. And so that's why we approached county commissioners and what you're doing in bringing this to the forefront, because we know through data also that people are more likely to know about this, more likely to participate in this if it's offered by their employers. And so from the Treasury, we absolutely commend, and our Treasurer, Stacey Garrity, commends the Center County Commissioners for their leadership and decisive action in this resolution that you're adopting this morning. And we hope that other employers in Center County and throughout rural Pennsylvania will follow your lead in this because it has an impact. It has an impact beyond the individual because we know that every child that has a post-secondary education savings account is 3 times more likely to enroll in college, 4 times more likely to graduate, regardless of how modest the amount in that account is. And so we thank you for your leadership, and again, we hope other employers in Center County will follow suit and follow your lead with this. So thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
We plan to begin offering this to the employees this summer. I'm working with the controller. What will happen is employees will be able to go on to the PA Treasury site and set up an account for a child or family member, can be a grandchild, a niece, a nephew, their own child, to set up an account for post-secondary education savings. We will automatically then deduct it from their paycheck for them, so they don't have to go to their bank and set up a separate account. They just have to let us know that they've contacted the PA Treasury, provide us the form with their account number and information, and we will automatically take those deductions out of their pay for them. So it takes away a lot of that work of having to find one, going to their bank, setting one up. It's going to the PA Treasury site, setting it up, and providing us the form to have the deductions automatically come out for the child. So we're excited to offer this. Jason and I are working on setting up the vendor and the deduction to get it set up. So we'll be doing some educational materials out to the employees once this is adopted on how to proceed with it.
Great, thanks, Kristen. Commissioner Concepcion, any questions or comments?
Yeah, so Stephen, if you could share with us just briefly what some of the tax benefits are of paying for education through a 529 plan.
Absolutely. So Anybody can create one of these accounts online at patreasury.gov. It takes about 3 minutes to create one. And you can deposit up to $17,000 a year into a PA 529 and receive a state tax break on that $17,000. So you will pay no state taxes on that first $17,000, and that's each year. And it's also worth mentioning that these funds can be used for any qualified education expense that includes 4-year, 2-year, community college, trade school, even private K through 12 tuition. So we know that a lot of folks who have kids in private school will use a 529 to put the money in and pay, cut the check to pay for their K through 12 simply because of the tax benefits they can get just in that process alone. Yep.
Commissioner Dershowitz?
I would just, probably the big, maybe the big question that's out there is, how does this work? Does it give you tuition credits? Does it give you a cash pool to draw from? Maybe explain that a little bit further.
Sure. So, I mean, there are no shortage of college savings programs out there. PA 529s are created under the IRS Code 529, and they're really created to be accessible to absolutely anyone. Again, someone can do it on our website in a matter of minutes. You're not required to deposit any money. You're not required to have the deductions made, although, in time you would want to do that. But it just removes all the restrictions. It's also referred to as prepaying for college because, at least with the Pennsylvania Treasury, there are two plans within the 529. One is a guaranteed savings plan, one is an investment plan. If you choose the guaranteed savings plan, we guarantee that your money is going to grow at least at the rate that tuition will increase, whether you choose a local college or university. So you're using today's money to pay for whatever tomorrow's college expense is. So that's one of the key benefits.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Steve?
No, it's a great
All right.
great
Also, Steve, I used this program for both of my children while they were in college. As I remember, aren't the fees quite low as well?
And each state sets their fees, and I can tell you Pennsylvania is celebrated as usually being one of the best versions of the 529 plan in our country. So for those very reasons, and under the leadership of Treasurer Garrity, just restrictions, fees have been absolutely either eliminated or minimized in a way that I don't think any other state's doing. Yeah.
So it's easy to sign up for. You save state taxes on the money. The fees are low. As Commissioner Dershowitz was having you mention, there are two different investment options, one of which will increase at whatever the rate of tuition increases are. And I believe it's any post-secondary, pretty much any post-secondary program in the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, correct?
Absolutely, and not just within the Commonwealth. I mean, anywhere that you choose to go to school in the country and the world. So the funds aren't restricted in that, as long as it's a qualified expense, and that really is anything related to education.
Remember, it even includes rent, as I remember.
Yep, room, board, whatever it takes for you to go to college, absolutely, it's all covered.
Great
And
program.
I would say one other thing, that we know that the hard step is for a parent to actually take that first step and open the account, and we've made that even easier with the Keystone Scholars Program, which our legislature passed in 2018, which we have a $100 college scholarship for every child born in Pennsylvania, December 31st, 2018 and beyond, and that's just sitting there again waiting for people to go and activate those accounts. So we'll give you the first $100 for your child that was born since January 1st, 2019. So.
Wonderful, wonderful. And thanks, Kristen, for helping with this. Hopefully this will make the college savings a lot easier for county employees anyway. And I believe, Steve, this is available to any company out there, right?
Absolutely. As a supplementary benefit, I mean, I think it's a wave that's beginning to take shape and will spread across the nation, but it really, there's no cost. I mean, even as Kristen, in looking into this, the burden on the HR payroll department is almost non-existent, and it just costs you nothing, and it's just a benefit that really could make a difference, not only in the lives of the children that would end up going to school, but it lays the foundation for community prosperity, because as you increase the rate of post-secondary education, it helps you attract all manner of economic development that would benefit the community. So definitely.
Education and training is critical. You need those certificates, you need those pieces of paper to prove you did it.
Right.
Yes. Great, thank you.
Thank you again.
Anything else, Commissioner? take a motion?
Move to adopt Resolution 10 of 2023.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adopting Resolution 10 of 2023, do so by saying aye. Aye, opposed, nay. Motion carries. Great, thanks for coming, Steve. Thanks, Kristen. All right, we will move now to contracts. We have Glenn from the correctional facility, something involving tasers.
Good morning.
Morning.
Here to present for your review a contract with Taser, Axon Enterprises, to purchase 6 new Taser 7 bundles. The current Tasers that we use are X2s that were initially released, I believe, in 2010 or 2011. Axon is sunsetting those, so we can no longer buy the cartridges we need for them. Along with this bundle, we will be getting a virtual reality training headset, which is a new learning tool, especially for some of our younger staff. Maybe a more realistic setting for them than working with a non-movable target. It gives you different scenarios. It's instructor-led. The instructor can see what you do. The instructor can check on your technique and your qualifying level. So with those sunsetting, we had no option but to explore other opportunities, which is why I'm requesting this. We did have some money in the budget for this. Between what we had in the initial budget and our training fund, we can cover these expenses in this year, and then we will put them in our budget request for the next 4 years going forward.
Great.
The second item, as you know, back in 2018, we did a massive upgrade to our camera system at the facility. That included an initial 5-year contract for service agreement. We've worked with PSX to get an additional 3-year service contract for that. It gives us 24/7 emergency service. Still requires them to be on site within 24 hours of when we notify them of an issue. This will not cover part replacement, but it covers everything else but the parts as of this point, because since we're past the 5 years, getting them to warranty parts past that is. We also had this in our budget for 2023, and we'll continue to put in our next 3 years budget request as well. So asking for your consideration, approval on both items.
Great, thanks, Glenn. Commissioner Concepcion, questions?
Sounds reasonable.
Commissioner Dershowitz?
Hopefully you never have to deploy your tasers, but they are a very effective tool if indeed they are deemed necessary, so.
They are. Thankfully, our deployment rate is low, but when they are needed, they are very effective.
Very good.
I'll move to add the Center County Correctional Facility items 1 and 2 to next week's consent agenda.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adding the Center County Correctional Facility items 1 and 2 to next week's consent agenda, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay. Motion carries. Great, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Paul.
Thanks, Glenn.
All right, and now we have, I believe, Mitzi and Ray from Planning regarding project selection for the 2023 Community Development Block Grant applications. Morning.
Okay, so 2 weeks ago, we reviewed the projects that were submitted for the 23 CDBG application. No new projects have come in since project review. So the 4 projects that were submitted, the Haynes Woodward Water Authority submitted the Mountain Avenue water line replacement. This is the customers and residents of that system that are not being assisted with the current ongoing project. So this 23 project would then complete their entire water system if it's funded as your project. And the amount needed is $215,700. The county's allocation is $285,171. If you choose to fully fund the Haynes Woodward project, that would leave you $69,471. So the second project that I put on your list then to fund at that amount would be the pilot program for a Center County Housing Rehab program, which would rehabilitate low, moderate incomes, private-owned, single-home owner houses. The third project submitted was the Gregg Township project, and that would be a second phase of their 22 project. The 22 project replaces the gym floor and the windows. And this project submitted this year would be to replace storage room windows, heat pumps, and an electrical upgrade. And the fourth project is another Haynes Aaronsburg Municipal Authority project. You have the ongoing current CV competitive project that's wrapping up. And then they have a remaining balance of 2020 and their 21 funds to do the generator and fire hydrants. So this project they submitted for 23 is additional water mains in their system.
All right, maybe to explain briefly to the people at home, the Community Development Block Grant Program is a federal program that's very helpful to areas that have low to moderate incomes, which in Center County is not always an easy geography to identify.
It's not, right, because every person that's benefiting from the project that has to come in, totality of everyone being helped at least 51% low moderate income. And that is based on Section 5 home, which is basically Section 8 income limits for the county.
And so I believe State College area is a carve-out. They have their own program.
State College and Bellefonte have their own, yes. Bellefonte's will fall under the county's umbrella, but State College is a HUD direct because of population size.
So there are areas of the county that probably have not been eligible for this type of program for decades. And then there are other areas where, depending on who's living there at any particular time, maybe they're at 48% low to moderate income, so they wouldn't be eligible. And we appreciate your hard work on this. And I'll turn it over to Commissioner Concepcion, but I had some additional questions for later.
So wanted to clarify, what the board needs to do at this point is determine which of these projects we determine are most valuable to fund and the level at which, or whether we're
Correct,
going to
get to your
fund all
total
of them.
allocation.
Right, or whether we want to fund all of them partially. So is that,
If you would choose to partially select them all, DCD frowns against that.
Okay, good to
Because
know.
you need to complete a full project within at least 3 years, so they're only contracting for 3 years. And it usually has been taking DCD a full year just to give you your contract because you don't have your 22 contract yet. So we've basically lost already a 22 season. They're going to backdate the contracts like they always do. So now you essentially have 2 years to complete a project. They cannot start a project until every year of funding is in hand. So if you would, we'll just assume, give each project $60,000, none of the projects can move forward. So you're waiting till at least your second year of funding to be able to start to move a project. So they do frown against that. They would rather see you fully fund one project, get it done. Also, partially funding and then not being able to start is going to count against you. It's going to put you in a higher monitoring risk because they base monitoring on how much money you're moving, how much you still have open.
so a project like the fourth project, the total comes in over the available amount, so that project seems to
We
be.
definitely need a second year of funding, yes.
So it makes it very difficult with all the rules and the low to moderate income areas moving around constantly.
In a way, it's very nice that you actually have 4 projects that came in. You know, I also work in Union County, and it's usually begging municipalities to give projects. So sometimes there is only one project, and then the commissioners are very unhappy that they don't have multiple projects to select from, so it's, you have a different problem.
Right, yes.
Any more questions, Commissioner?
Yeah, I'll let Steve ask his questions, and I might have more, yeah.
You need an answer today on these projects?
Yes, you select your project or projects to fund today, that's official day of action, and then those projects will get put into the final hearing notice. Your final hearing is scheduled to be held August 3rd, and that is to allow public comment, citizen participation.
My feeling is I would like to fund the Gregg Township project as part of, I think number one has its merits. But my feeling is that perhaps Gregg Township would be a worthy discussion point. But I'm open for discussion for about any of them.
Is it the case that we can basically do either number 1, or we could do 2 and 3? I don't see how to
You
fit.
could do 1
other-
and 2, or 2 and 3, if you
Okay.
want to fully fund projects.
I think we could partially fund the Gregg Township one, quite frankly. I think there's enough project, in intricacies to their project that they would be able to,
Maybe whittle down a smaller project
yeah,
within your.
so my thought is number 1, and I would go with number 3. If that's just my thought, but I'm open for discussion.
All right, so what you're proposing is we look at fully funding the first project for Haynes Woodward, and then asking the Gregg Township Community Center to potentially winnow theirs down a little bit to use the remaining funds?
Well, yeah, they have plenty of sub-projects here.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about, storage room windows, replace stage floor, stage access, electrical upgrades to gym. I mean, there's enough things in there, quite frankly, I think we could. But again, I'm open for offers. If there's a compelling discussion about either 2 or 4, I'd be willing. It's just, I would be hesitant to fund number 1 and number 4 because they are basically the same municipality. Like
And
to
number
spread it
4
out
is
a
just
little.
too large, yeah.
And glad to see Faith is here. Project number 2 with the housing rehab, I mean, at that point, isn't that pretty close to the whole home program that we're just kicking off?
It's a
all right.
CDBG housing rehab program, so basically, like a third party, so Union County Housing Authority runs program in Union County and Snyder County, and DCD has been talking for years about getting a housing rehab program, so a low moderate income family, it has to be a single owned, so it can't be commercial, it can't be a rental, it can't be a duplex. If the homeowners are low moderate income, then they would work with a contractor to do a housing rehab to bring their house up to code. And that could just be a ramp for accessibility, it could be making their kitchen accessible, could be adding safety features to a shower, could be windows, could be a roof, it's.
Sure. Yeah, so the whole home repair program is still very much in its infancy. We have had quite a interest. We're currently working through about 40 to 50 just first-time inquiries and starting our client screening. So I would say that between the whole home program that we are hopeful will continue to be funded through the state, and then also the program that Habitat for Humanity is hoping to launch would at least meet some of the need. So I don't want to say without having any understanding or knowledge it's a total duplication, but I would say that we're starting to see an increase of funding coming into communities for home repair, home rehab, green energy and things like that.
So maybe something we might look at in another 2 years or so, once we've gone through the whole home funding and have the project on there. And also, I swear I saw a community action truck in a neighborhood that appeared to be a vaguely similar program.
The weatherization program.
Yeah, yeah,
And I believe most of that funding is through the Department of Energy.
all right. Okay. So for Steve's idea, I do know that community center, very well used, parking lot's usually full, almost weekday and evenings and on the weekends. Now for the Haynes Woodward Water Authority, have we given them funding in the recent past, Ray?
2019. and
Okay.
It's the project that's wrapping up
Yeah.
right now. And this is the piece of the project that was not included in that project.
Aren't we currently working with Haynes Aaronsburg?
Yeah, big competitive that's wrapping up, and then they have 2020 and 2021 money to do the emergency generator, auto transfer switches, and some hydrants.
I agree that the Gregg Township project seems like that can be at least partially funded. It seems like the Water Authority project, we're like in for a penny, in for a pound with that one, right?
Yeah.
Like it's all or nothing.
For the Haynes Woodward, definitely, you would want to fund that so they could get moving and get that done. And the Gregg Township project, they can whittle out, Commissioner Dersham's right, they could whittle down a smaller, or they could do this as a phase two, totally separate from their 22 project, and come back to you next year for the additional funding.
But they could potentially either winnow it down, or we could do it as a two-stage?
Yes.
Okay. I hate to leave $69,000 just sitting around for another year. Right, I'm assuming if we don't allocate it today, we have to allocate it
Well, you
next
would
year?
allocate it today. I think that's what Commissioner Dersham's saying, is fully fund number one, and then
Right.
partially fund number two. And then the township and their engineer can talk about either whittling it down, doing the most critical. Is that the heat pumps, or is it the electrical upgrade? And just completing a project with the 69,471?
Yeah.
Or do they want to do, like many projects, and we're coming back a second year to ask for the additional to completely pay for the 160 that they need?
So 1 and 3, not 1 and 2.
Right, I think the commissioners have said they
One and
don't
three.
like number two, so
Well, I
1
think
and
maybe we
3.
would like it a couple years from now, but we've got a lot of stuff happening at the moment in that exact
Sure.
area.
Yeah, other potential funding streams for the same goal for number
So
two.
bring it back to you next year and the next year.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there is the possibility of just doing project number one, but then we have $69,000 unspent.
Right, you have to allocate it all. You
you
have
have
to
to.
choose, yes, you do. You need to either put it all into excessively
Yeah.
Haynes Woodward,
Okay.
or fund a second project with the remaining, and the balance is 69,471 if you fully fund number one.
All right.
That would probably be my proposal, to do that. The fully fund number one and put 69,471 towards the Gregg Township project.
Which is pretty much what I think Steve was advocating for as well. Okay. All right. It looks like we have consensus forming around fully funding the Haynes Woodward Water Authority project for $207,000, and then going back to the Gregg Township Community Center in Spring Mills and saying, hey, do you want to winnow it down, or do you want to try to go for a 2-year funding, which means you can't start it until the second year?
Right.
Okay. And that's okay, we can do that?
Yes, yep, yeah, because it hasn't been formed yet. You're just selecting the project,
All
and
right.
now it becomes the fun part of working with the engineer, forming an actual project for the application.
All right. Do you want to make a motion? on that?
Okay. I will move that we approve as the 2023 CDBG projects to fund the Haynes Woodward Water Authority in the amount of $215,700, and the Gregg Township Community Center Gymnasium project in the amount of $69,471.
All right, we have a motion and a second to fully fund the Haynes Woodward Water Authority project and partial funding for the Gregg Township Community Center. All those in favor do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay, motion carries.
Thank
Great,
you.
thanks, Mitzi. And then I think, Ray, you stay up here for 2 more items.
I'm going to stay up here for the first item. We would like the Commissioner's consideration for advertisement for bidding on the Center County Bridge Replacement Bundle. The 2 bridges that we're dealing with right now in the replacement bundle are the Railroad Street Bridge in Bellefonte Borough and also Mill Street Bridge in Howard Borough. So this would open up an advertisement for bidding to be submitted to our controller, Jason Mosier, up until August 18th at 1 p.m.
Okay.
At 2 p.m. that same day, we will publicly open and read aloud those bids for the bridge replacement project. Questions will be allowed to Larson Design Group up until August 11th at 12 p.m. for the bidding on these 2 projects. Thereafter, we will bring back a list of bidders to the commissioners for consideration of approval. I don't have a date right now
All
until
right.
we determine who submits and whether they're satisfactory or not.
All right. Great. Any questions, Commissioner Concepcion? Commissioner Dershowitz? Yeah, Ray, I believe both of these bridges are pretty much the only way into those neighborhoods.
That's my understanding.
Yep, yep. So if Mill Street Bridge in Howard Borough happens to be designated as what, structurally deficient, Then there's roughly, I think, over a dozen homes that don't have access, plus I believe one of the boat launches at the state park would now be pretty much useless.
That's correct.
And then, of course, Railroad Street Bridge here in Bellefonte, it's just kind of a semicircle away from here. It's the Sunnyside neighborhood.
That is correct.
Plus, I think there's a CEDACOG rail area back there that they occasionally do repairs in, and also, I think, the Mach 1 kayaking.
That is correct.
Yes.
Yes. Several landowners that
Yeah.
depend on that bridge as well.
Yep.
Trying to think of any other details I could bring up on those two, but I think you covered them all.
All right. I just remember working on these for several years now and going, well, if it's the only way in and out of a neighborhood, the municipality must repair it. And I know Howard Borough and Bellefonte Borough are not in the best of financial shape, so the county coming in and assisting them is hopefully well appreciated.
Yes, I think just to reiterate it, probably from previous meetings, is that the Bellefonte Borough and Howard Borough are contributing at least $30,000 each to this. The county applied for multimodal funds in 2019 in the amount of, I think, over $2 million. So there's been much of the funding to be not only from the multimodal and from the boroughs, but also from the Act 14 and fee for local use that are making these projects possible. So it's just, we're still moving forward and looking forward to construction hopefully next year with these two.
And of course, these will be very expensive projects. We have to build a temporary bridge
That is correct.
because people need access. All right. Any?
These projects are ridiculously expensive, so,
Yes.
when, even a township or borough and significant good financial health is a burden, so glad to see you.
Tremendous help. The second item that I have on there before the action is that to go with this advertisement for bids, the conceptual construction drawings will be made accessible to potential bidders on the Larson Design Group webpage. So we're asking the commissioners to sign the conceptual construction drawings so that they're available for those bidders to view what has been outlined for future construction.
Good. Any additional questions? No. All right, then we can take a motion.
I'll move to approve the planning and community development items 1 and 2, or 2 and 3.
2 and 3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the items 2 and 3 for the planning and community development. All those in favor do so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Great. Thanks, Ray.
Thank you.
All right, now we have something from Chad for information technologies.
Good morning. I have a contract for consideration today with Reich to provide a project management software for the county. This license will allow us to have 25 users on this software that can help us manage small-scale and large-scale projects and manage multiple projects at the same time as well. Contract total is $2,940, and it's a one-year contract.
That sounds like a great idea, Chad, with all the different capital projects we have going right now. I'm sure this is going to come in very handy.
Could be very helpful.
Commissioner Concepcion, any questions?
Yeah, this makes sense. Thanks.
Commissioner Dershowitz?
John, you're in favor of this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Great.
I'll move to add the contract with Reich Inc. to next week's consent agenda.
I will second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adding the contract with Reich Inc. to next week's consent agenda, do so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Great. Thanks, Chad.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chad.
All right. Now we'll have Faith come up for, I think it's 10 children and youth contracts plus some other ones later.
All right, good morning. Yes, I'll be representing Children and Youth, my Department of Adult Services, and MHID on today's agenda. So with Children and Youth Services, these are all renewals except for the last item. The first item is a renewal with Wardle and Associates. It's one of their largest providers for various services out of CYS. Contract renewals 2 from 9 are all for foster placement and youth services. And the last item is a letter of agreement with Strawberry Fields. It's an MOU to provide referrals regarding mental health services. And that's it.
Great. Thanks, Faith. Any questions from the commissioners? Looks like this is well over $3 million of contracts.
So I think I've asked this before, and the answer was yes, but that as we're making these agreements with these kind of residential service programs, that we have an evaluation process for the quality of the care being provided.
Yes, and I will tell you that Children and Youth has a very thorough outcome and review process that some of our departments are even looking at now to improve the monitoring that we already do. So most providers are going through some sort of annual, bi-monthly, quarterly review with the provider just to make sure that they're meeting the scope of work in their contract and providing the data requested. So, yes.
Commissioner Dershowitz, any questions?
I just, every time these come up, I just have to comment that, this is huge volume. We're looking at county contributions of, over $500,000 in the one case.
Yeah.
And I would agree with Commissioner Concepcion that we need to maintain. First of all, it's sad that we have to provide these services, but in the reality that we do, we want to make sure that everything is provided for and we're getting the best quality services we can. And appreciate the hard work that goes into developing these relationships. So,
Is there any interviews or anything like that done with the children who have been placed in these at any point to check in on how they're doing in their perceptions of the care they've received in these placements?
Are you asking during placement or in the future, or like after the placement?
At any point.
Well, during the placement, they are still assigned a caseworker, and so that caseworker meets with them on a regular basis. We have caseworkers that are traveling across the state and even out of the state to make sure that they're cared for and make sure that their needs are being met, and they will interview them face to face. As far as any sort of interviewing after, I think that would really depend on whether or not the youth or the young adult decided to participate in any sort of screening or discussion or survey after that.
So when the caseworkers are doing those visits with the youth who are in these placements, it's very clear to those youth that they want to know if there's any concerns.
Yes. Yep. They're directly asked if they're doing okay and if there's anything that they need. Yep.
We appreciate the funding from the state and federal governments that actually covers the majority of these costs.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Great. Any other
Should be
questions?
covered by the parents who are responsible for raising them like everybody else, just for the record.
So I will move to add Children and Youth Services 1 through 10 to next week's consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to add the Children and Youth Service contracts 1 through 10 to next week's consent agenda. All those in favor do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
Thanks. All right, now you have a whole bunch more for adult services?
So the first four in adult services are contract addendums. So these are the contract extension for both our ESG CV1 and 2 grants. We've had them since 2020 or 2021, depending on the grant. We were offered another contract extension until August 31st of 2023, and so we agreed and decided to move forward. And so what's in front of you are contract addendums for the actual DCD grants and then also with the provider housing transitions. The fifth item is a contract renewal of service access management. So they provide us administrative assistance for our rental and mortgage assistance program, which is one of our block grant programs. Number 6 is considering the approval of a 5-year partnership with Connect to Home. So this is similar in having a referral, MOU or relationship. This is through our Eastern PA COC, and it's one of the databases that we share as well for our housing and homeless services. The last is a letter of agreement with Susquehanna Software. So this is just an annual renewal for our CPR Web platform in adult services, which is our client database.
All right, any questions, Commissioner Concepcion? Commissioner Dershowitz?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, we'll take a motion.
Okay, I'll move to add the adult services items 1 through 7 to next week's consent agenda.
I will second that.
All right, all those in favor of adding the 7 items for adult services to next week's consent agenda, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay, motion carries. And 3 more items for the Super Department, MHIDEI, drug and alcohol.
Okay, so the first one is a new contract with Sinclair Child Services. They'll be providing drug and alcohol services in Phillipsburg, and this is to replace Quest that was once in that area. The second is a contract renewal with UPMC Home Health Care, and this is part of the early intervention services. They're one of the providers that can come in and work with families on a variation of services. The third is a contract renewal with Keep Safe Transportation Services, and that is a crisis transport services for people that have been committed that are transitioning between different facilities.
Sure. With number one, with the SendClear contract, is that specifically for children or for clients of any age?
I believe it's for clients of any age, but I will have to check with Kathy to determine that for sure. I believe that's the title of the agency's name, and they're covering that service because they provide so many different things. I believe they're only 18 and up, but we'd have to confirm.
All right. Thanks.
I'm pretty sure the MAT medical assisted therapy, that's only 18 and up.
Right. Right.
Anything else? No? Commissioner Dershowitz? All right, we'll take a motion.
I'll move to approve MHID, EI, DNA items 1 through 3, to add those to next week's consent agenda.
All right, we have a motion and a second to add the mental health, intellectual disability, early intervention, drug and alcohol items 1 through 3 to next week's consent agenda. All those in favor do so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We have a very short consent agenda. Any discussion on that? No? All right, we'll take a motion.
I'll move to approve this week's consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving this week's consent agenda do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, we'll move to our authorities, boards, and commissions. We have an appointment to our Mental Health Intellectual Disability Advisory Board, Shannon Manley. She'll be appointed effective today through the 10th of July of 2025, and we appreciate her willingness to serve. Could we have a motion for that approval?
I'll move to approve the appointment of Shannon Manley.
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the appointment of Shannon Manley. All those in favor do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And now to Commissioner Concepcion for the check run.
Yeah, so one of the thing that I wanted to highlight in today's check run is we have, again, a number of payments to foster families and subsidies for adoptions. Just a note, we talked about the contracts we were, putting on next week's consent agenda regarding children and youth items for children who need an outside placement. And the county is always looking for foster families, and there is funding available to help families cover those costs. And with that, I would move to approve the check run dated July 7th, 2023.
I will second that with great appreciation for the families in Center County that have reached out to help our foster system here.
Yep,
Very
agreed.
much appreciated. Great families, and I know some of them have, over the years, helped as many as several dozen children.
Any more than that in some
Yes,
cases.
yes. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the check run dated July 7th. All those in favor do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, do we have an administrator's report, John?
Nothing
No?
to report at this time.
All right, we'll move to announcements. Commissioner Dershowitz, oh, there is a voter.
Oh, we do have a voter registration report. Today, we have 99,831 registered voters in Center County. That breaks down to 42,005 Democratic registrations, 131 Green Party, 598 Libertarian, 13,367 no affiliation, and 40,645 Republican voters, which when you add the 3,085 other smaller party registrants, you come up with the 99,831 number. I would like to highlight the U.S. Pirate Party as our small party of the week. There is one U.S. pirate in Center County, and we'd like to acknowledge them. I also like to recognize precinct number 14, which is Snowshoe Borough. They voted the fire hall on Snowshoe, and in the last election, there were total registered voters of 385. There were 127 ballots cast, which led to a percentage turnout of 32.99%. Couldn't quite get to 1/3, but very close.
Very close.
But I'd like to thank the fire hall for helping us out and all the folks that make it happen up in Snowshoe. So there you have it.
Great, thanks, Steve. John, do we have any executive sessions to report or hold?
No executive sessions to report or hold.
All right, and our public meeting schedule, we have a combined Board of Commissioner and Salary Board meeting at 10 a.m. on Thursday morning, the 13th, And then the regular commissioner meeting on Tuesday, July 18th at 10 a.m., followed by a work session at 11. Do we have any questions from the press? No? All right. Looks like we take a motion to adjourn
I
then.
will move to adjourn.
I will second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor of adjourning, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned at 10:50. Thanks.